And joining me now on the program is General Henry Ayoola, retired of the Nigerian Army. He joins me virtually on the program. General Ayoola, thank you for holding on and for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you, Buki, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to our viewers.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Let's get right into it. Now, the interview that the Minister of Defense granted our sister political program is quite compelling because it reveals a whole lot. One of which I want to refer to is when he said that, look, this coup has been planned even before 2023, as soon as the plotters knew that it was this current president that won the election, it had been hatched. And that's quite some time ago, prior to 2023. We're in 2026 already. Now, help us tie the suggestion in that bit of information about disaffection within the military and, of course, what appears to be the socio-economic challenges in the country. Are they related, or the factors causing the coup from the institutional perspective are entirely different?
Yeah, thank you so very much once again. Well, I think we need to look at it from several angles. Of course, as an analyst, I'm not going to look at just that dimension or that viewpoint alone, because that information could only have come from the suspects as to when they started. Okay, and there are many options. One, they could be saying that as a kind of revisionist stratagem to cover their tracks and to further muffle the possibility of identifying the origin, the intentions, and all of that. That's one way to look at it. The other way, of course, is to think of it indicates a whole lot about the true intent behind it and the likely real origin, true origin. Because if they were going to take advantage of that interregnum between the outgoing government and the new government, okay, it provides a lot of advantage in terms of it's a period where there'll be a kind of destabilization in the system, and of course they could take advantage of that. Assuming that's a true assumption from their end, or that's what they say. Okay, but if it's an outcome of an investigation, then of course, then we need to take it very seriously. And then of course, now that says a whole lot. Now, let me start by saying, first and foremost, the concept of military coup making, which is age-long, concept, and which you usually find the category of people who fall into that temptation, let me put it that way, is age-long too. People who are disgruntled, people who are not happy with the system, people who think that they've not benefited from the system and think that if they can offset the system and give themselves a more advantageous, position, then of course they will enjoy better. So a lot of that, people who are in, like the story of King David in the Bible, when he was getting people to follow him, the same kind of thing. Those who are indebted, those who are disgruntled, those who are not happy, all of that. So that usually is in the background, of mostly people who are either lured or they are the one champion. Usually it's a few people that champion, this thing. Others are brought in either by, some may not even know that they are being brought in, so they may just be people walking in line of whoever is a senior person in the area where they work. And it's not, your boss doesn't have to explain to you why he's giving you an order. You're talking about military. So all of these are possibilities. But let's take for real this perspective that it started before then. Then you begin to ask many questions. But when you look at the list of those involved, the spread in terms of geographical spread, the spread in terms of the rank, and you put all of that together, then you ask yourself, maybe what what went wrong with the last government in terms of the issue of fairness, justice, and equity. Were there genuine concerns and genuine examples and cases where equity, justice, and fairness suffered? And within the military system particularly, And of course, when you also note that there are civilian accomplices, at least from the list that we are given, then you also appreciate the fact that when people cannot get what they want through the front door, they try to get it through the back door. That also is an element you can see there. So there are far-reaching, implications. Well, again, if you look at it from generations, I look at the generation of the officers in the armed forces today. Even the most senior of them must have been at best very young officers at the time maybe the last military coup happened in the country.
Yeah.
So their knowledge, their experience, or any possibility of having participated in the previous coup is virtually zero. So you begin to actually ask, so why would they want to take such a blind leap? It's like committing suicide, because when you look at the indicators and the paradigms of things that need to be in place before anybody can even be contemplating a thing like this, it's either that they're acting out of abysmal advertisement of ignorance, or they were pushed to the point that they were willing, to take this kind of blind leap. Because again, coup is like war. If you succeed, then you jubilate. If you fail, it's death. So it's like you go into battle, it's either you kill the enemy first or the enemy kill you first. So it's not a flippant thing. It's not a scanty decision. It's not a decision you can take casually.
Yeah,
Yes.
General, your insights, they cause a shiver to run down the spine. You know why? Because of the consequence for, organizing a coup, even if you were co-opted without knowing it. So it's quite scary. But you talked about the geographical spread of this outlook of names that have come out. Initially it was 16, now we're seeing 44 names. And if you take a close look at that geographical spread, it provides some indicators. What does this say about, I know you had referred to it, but what does this say about this traditional ethnic dichotomy that often shapes our electoral reality and our governance outlook? Should we be laying it again only on the former administration? If those issues had been addressed since 2023, do you think the coup plotters would have gone through with this coup? I know it's quite a lot in one, but I'm sure you're capable.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me emphasize and maybe elucidate on the fact that when I say the geographical spread, that's what I call the Nigerian question, the inherent clash of civilizations we have been living with. I've spoken about this again and again on many platforms, and we all pretend it's not there, but it keeps haunting us. It keeps coming back to the reality of our unity. Either we have actually crafted a nation state, a genuine nation state, or we are still a multinational country with diversities of ideology, interests, identity, clash of values, clash of principles, clash of interests, all of this. We've been living and pretending. We've not decisively, confronted this question, this Nigerian question. And so you find it playing out again and again in virtually everything we do. And so, again, you cannot nullify that. It plays out here. But like why I said perhaps it's a revisionist stratagem for them to confuse the investigation too. If they are the one saying that, if the suspects, don't forget they are still suspects, if the suspects are the ones saying that they started this, towards the end of the last government, I could also see that as a deliberate attempt to dodge the possibility of tracing it to the real origin. But if it's already an outcome of investigation done by the security and intelligence agencies. By the way, I need to salute the professionalism and the vigilance of our security and intelligence services and agencies for being able to, break through this. I mean, that's a whole lot of work. Kudos to them. But, answering your question more directly is to say, yes, we still have these fault lines of cultural clash, and all of that, and the dichotomy between the ethno-religious fault lines that we pretend that they are not there, but we know they play out in virtually everything. I mean, I grew up in the system. I started my military career from the military school in Zaria before going to the academy in Kaduna. I can trace how we got here, okay, as a nation. There was a time where nobody really cared where you came from. I mean, you didn't even know where your friend was from. You didn't care because that was not the point of interest. That was not the point of friendship. There was a time where the nation was more homogenic by relationship. And then we knew when this injection of ethno-religious consideration began to creep in, and I grew up to become a major force and all of that. So these things are there, and that's why, like I think it was Thomas Jefferson, the third American president, who said that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. We know that one of the most precious ingredients of democracy is freedom. Okay, and for us to keep this freedom, well, we must stay on course. We must remain perpetually at that cutting edge of possible, fault lines degenerating into things like this, where people actually now decide to rock the system. Okay, but obviously bearing the fact that the generation of those who are involved could not have had anything to do with it in their younger age, younger period of their career. And that means they had to think originally. I'm a signal officer, I know fairly well some of the, things that had to be done in those days and all that, but not that I never really, even my own generation, we can't talk of having participated in such a thing. So it means the issue
General,
is pushing them. Yes.
Where did the divisions begin to emerge when you were in the military, and where? Since you witnessed quite a lot.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot there, but it's okay. Because we need to find this. We need to be able to put our fingers on when did this, become an issue for us as a nation. Okay, if you follow the history of Nigeria, of course, the first coup in 1966 also demonstrated that. You could see that element of the dichotomy between North and South, ethnic preferences or inclinations playing out. Then, of course, it grew from that point. When, of course, it was followed up by the what we call the counter coup, okay, which was more or less a revenge coup. So you see the part of the nation where that was predominant in that also. Then you move from there until 1975, and this really rocked the system. I was already in uniform. The only two that happened before I was in uniform is the 66 coup. From 75, I was following this, as a boy soldier. It was news for us then, and because we were within the system, we were following. And of course, I remember I was a stick cuddler in the military school. Some of the senior officers, I've seen them closely, matching them on parade and all of that. So you trace it from then. You come to 75, where some of these sentiments were now amplified. By the time the coup that happened in that 75, and you also see the Dinka school, for example, which was a response to the first school in 75, was also, you could see where it was located in the middle belt, more or less, because then, of course, they could feel the pinch of the changes that were happening, as a result of the Murtala Mohammed school. So,
all right.
And it was not only the military this thing had influences on. If you remember also, even the civil service, the public service also were victims. They were casualties of that, what was seen as toughness.
All right.
which, I mean, some other people will see it as some irrationality and some arbitrariness, that were displayed. I remember some of the even service chiefs in the armed forces who were, just summarily dismissed. Some of them didn't have homes to pack to. That's to tell you there was a time where our leaders were very honest in this country.
We must anchor at this point.
Can you imagine a service chief not having a home to pack to when retired? And some palm sets were given 24 hours to pack out of their official quarter. This thing disrupted the system, brought issues of trust within the system. And that's when some of what we call corruption today, when people saw those kind of things, they began to think, okay, if this is how it is, I think we have to learn to take care of ourselves, because we don't know that we're going to be thrown out into the cold also like this. Things like that began to happen.
We must anchor at this point. You have answered my question at the same time. I saw that you also tacitly avoided the destination where you'd have headed. But we would have talked about consequences, which are dire, which is also forming the debate about how this will be handled, especially because of the civilians that were allegedly involved in this coup. But clearly it's an ongoing one, and we must thank you very much for coming on the program. General Henry Ayoola is a retired general of the Nigerian Army. Thank you for coming on Political Paradigm.
Thank you very much.